Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. My name's Sarah.
I'm Emily.
And we are the Carwells. Today we have a special guest. Today we are interviewing Jeremy Worden. We have designed for Jeremy and team before and developed a pretty good relationship with him. We originally met him on TikTok, big surprise. And he kind of popped off on TikTok because he has both short-term rentals and a boat rental company that really exploded during COVID. So we've learned a lot from him. We've enjoyed working with him, and we're going to dig into what his business looks like today. But as always, before we start digging in, we are going to start off with an Airbnb horror story that one of our followers submitted. Actually, a past client as well.
Yes, a former client submitted this story, and we'll get Jeremy's reaction to this too, because I think it's kind of a crazy one. We've actually had some pretty crazy stories that have been submitted so far. So this one is, like I said, from a former client. They said, I had 2 people book off of Expedia. They're not a fan of the platform anymore, I guess.
Rightly so.
She said, we give self check-in instructions, and they check in, stay, and then leave. The cleaner goes in the next day and finds that they took everything that they possibly could. All the Carwell curated blankets, pillows, robes, decorations, anything basically beyond like shampoo and soap. And they took the key. So she called a locksmith and the police, and the locksmith installed the keypads so that this won't be an issue again. But they have video footage of the people and their names. She decided not to press charges because she didn't really want to deal with the issue once again. And the person, I guess, has like warrants out for their arrest. So she was
never mind.
She was gonna get arrested anyways. So the story gets weirder. A few days later, she gets a manager application from someone who is very qualified and says, oh, I heard about this place through friends who stayed here. I put her through a rigorous interview process and absolutely love her. My other manager is training her and says the owner likes the rooms to match the photos on the website, except the photos of this suite don't match the website because it had to be redecorated after somebody took off with all their decor. The whole thing comes out. She found out about the property because she knows the people who ripped them off. Even though she wasn't one of the 2 people who stayed there, she was actually there the night it happened. She saw the room, found them online, saw they were hiring, and applied. I don't know what her intentions were. Maybe she genuinely wanted a job, but trust is so important in the manager role, so I let her go immediately.
So they robbed her, and
then got a job there.
Well, what does that say about our design? Getting robbed.
Guess we did a pretty good job.
Yeah, honestly. What in the world? I can't even fathom. I can't even fathom like walking into a room. I mean, I've been robbed before, so this story like particularly resonates. But also like, why would you admit that you knew the people who robbed her and were there the night that you got robbed to your new boss?
Yeah, makes no sense. Have you ever been robbed?
I guess, I mean, I definitely have my fair share of stories, but yeah, I haven't really dealt with too much theft. I mean, I've had my backpack stolen in like life, but nothing Airbnb. I ended up getting that backpack back, fortunately. But I guess my one question is, why no electric locks? why they have a physical key? I guess that was one.
Honest.
It says in her story that they bought locks from Best Buy that are electric locks, and they were waiting for the Best Buy team to come install them, but they hadn't come out yet.
Yeah.
And so they like actually just physically had keys until that happened. So now those are installed, but lesson learned, to get it done quicker, I guess.
Goodness. Yeah, well, it always reminds me, like, when people are talking about getting robbed or, like, guests taking more than they should, it's, like, reminds me of the Friends episode when Ross, like, takes everything from every single hotel room. Like, anywhere he goes, he's, like, takes all the toilet paper, all the shampoos, the hair dryer, like...
Hair dryer?
Like, what? People, quit. It just always surprises me the things that they think they're entitled to.
Wild.
So, those of you out there that are guests, please just take the things that are obviously for you, not our pillows and our rugs and our robes and our slippers. And
I would never.
Ew. Hate it. Hate it all the way around. But anyway, be a better guest. And if you're getting into being an Airbnb host, this is why it's important to have electric locks and cameras.
Yes.
All right, right, so let's begin the interview with you. One, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. Why don't you kind of just walk us through where you're at in your Airbnb journey so far, and how did your journey start?
Yeah, so thanks for having me. Yeah, so my journey, like I feel like a lot of Airbnb hosts or people who are doing it professionally at this point, it definitely was not something I anticipated getting into. Just definitely had a realization of how lucrative it can be. But yeah, so I started with managing a single property on a lake in North Carolina. And then in March of 2020, COVID hit. I was living in New York City, working full time at a private equity startup. And I left New York. I lived right next to a hospital. It was mildly depressing. So decided to come back to North Carolina, and where I'm initially from, and started spending a little bit of time at the lake, and realized that there was one boat rental service on the lake at that time, and at the beginning of COVID, they decided to stop doing boat rentals. I realized this when our guests were canceling their reservations because they, usually if you want to rent a lake house, a lot of times you want to rent a boat as well. That's kind of the purpose of being at the lake, is getting to go out on the water. Sometimes kayaks and paddleboards don't cut it. So when that boat rental business shut down and we had a couple of guests cancel their reservation, I was kind of ticked off, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna figure out how to do a boat rental. Like, I can't be having this, people canceling their reservations. Like, I'm gonna, I'm in North Carolina, I'm gonna figure this out. So figured out a single boat, kind of as like an add-on complimentary service, or add-on service to the one lake house, and realized through that hey, I've already figured out the logistics for a single boat. Why not try to get a couple more, and see if can kind of like scale this to all the Airbnbs on the lake. At the time there was probably like 15 Airbnbs on the lake, so got a couple more boats, one with like $0 down financing, pretty inexpensive boats, and reached out to all the other Airbnb owners on the lake or managers and said, hey, we've got boats, like, tell your guests. And through that, it just kind of popped off that summer. The boats definitely, nonstop phone calls or messages. And a couple of the people I talked to, a couple of the other homeowners, and then a couple of the people who rented boats were also, were buying houses that they wanted to do as Airbnbs, but they didn't know the first thing on how to do it. So they actually, I kind of educated them on the topic, and they ended up turning the keys over to me, and the boat rental business turned into a boat rental / Airbnb property management business. So I actually was managing Airbnbs before I'd ever invested any myself. But in October of 2020, so later that year, kind of took some of my money that I'd made from that summer, mostly with the boats, honestly, and invested in my first Airbnb property. Didn't have enough cash to buy an entire house myself, so needed that one. Needed some friends and family. Did the same thing in May of 2021. Bought a house with several friends. Then did the same thing in October, and then had Sarah and Emily design the place for us in Florida, which it's doing well thanks to them. Shout out. So yeah, so I guess I've been managing other people's Airbnbs, managing my own, and then raising capital with friends and family to go out and buy Airbnbs. And at this point, I've kind of accelerated that process. We're going to close on another one in Florida on Monday. We closed on a mountain house, 4 weeks ago. And then I'm going to start doing Airbnb arbitrage probably in the next few weeks. And then I bought an Airstream camper that I'm going to do as my first glamping unit. So I guess I really cover all the kind of verticals of Airbnb, like co-hosting, investing, arbitrage, as well as glamping. I mean, if there's another vertical, let me know. I guess I got to try that one too.
Yeah, you got introduced and you said move.
Yeah, exactly. Just
Everyone
jumping
move.
into every single thing.
Yeah, if there's another
Oh,
one, I need to try it. So those are the only four I know of.
yeah, absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. Well, and what I think is like interesting too that resonates really well with us is that you kind of started because of some crappy situation that COVID caused, right? Like you got involved because a boat rental place was shutting down and it was impacting your rental, and we did the same thing, right? It was like all of a sudden COVID was impacting our rentals that were in the city in the heart of DFW, and so we were like, oh crap, we really need to like pivot to keep these things afloat. And so I feel like I've heard that from you and from a lot of other hosts that now are very involved in Airbnb, where COVID had some sort of an impact on them that led them to this, and it's just grown from there. So that's always super cool to see.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. I
all
mean,
right, Emily.
when life gives you lemons, you got to make lemonade.
Yeah, 2020 was definitely a pivot year for a lot of people, especially in Airbnb, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice that yours was kind of out in the middle of nowhere too. Like the people that had properties that were a little more remote than downtown properties really did well. We were not so fortunate.
Yeah. So, next question. What would you say is your niche in the short-term rental world? Obviously, you kind of have jumped into every single one, but what one do you feel like you resonate with the most and like feel like is the most successful for what you're trying to do?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I feel like from in this space, or definitely kind of in like the, I don't want to say like the guru space or whatever, and I mean I wouldn't classify myself as that, but like if I'm going to compare myself to other people, I would say most people have a very specific niche. I don't. Like just to be honest, I don't. I would say that like I think what I'm uniquely skilled at is kind of like creative deal making and like investing. Um, just because I've had to kind of be creative. Like I've wanted to invest and buy Airbnb properties, but at beginning of COVID, I was 23 years old. I did not have much. Like essentially banks weren't going to give me any money. And so I needed to be creative and figure out ways to become an Airbnb investor and grow my business without doing, the traditional loaning against your W-2 option. So I'd just say, I don't creative deal making, is that a niche? Or
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and also one thing that I think is particularly very smart about what you're doing is, you're only a couple of years into this, right? So you're still going through your tasting phase. I mean, so are we, where it's like at the beginning you should be tasting as many different avenues as possible before you really start narrowing down and deciding where you want to kind of buckle down and become an expert in. Because you just don't know unless you go through the entire process of every single one. Um, so yeah, I think you're setting yourself up in an interesting way where like, at the end of the day, you're going to be like, I'm pursuing this because I know it's the easiest, or it makes the most money, or it requires the least on the back end, or whatever else, because you've tried it all.
yeah, and I would say, I mean, for me, like if I would have gone back a couple years ago and known what I know now, obviously I would have done things differently. But then again, I was March of 2020. I was living in New York City, and I loved my life. I had no intention of like at this point. I kind of travel around the country, bouncing between the different projects. I was just in Colorado. Now I'm in North Carolina. Now I'm going to Florida in a few days, by way of Western Smoky Mountains, Western North Carolina. So I didn't know that I was going to be this kind of like traveling Airbnb nomad. So yeah, I mean, where I've ended up now and what I've become is not through, like having a plan and saying I'm going to be this guy who's going to do this thing. It's really just yeah. I mean, I started with boat rentals. Like it's just random. It's so random. So I can't. I wish I could predict it.
Yeah, we love it though. It's fun to watch nonetheless.
Yeah, very entertaining from our side.
All right, next question is originally, how much money did you initially have to invest to get started?
Yeah, so in boats or in Airbnbs, or both?
Give us both, honestly.
Yeah, so boats, what I found was that boat financing, as long as you have a good credit score, like a house, if you get a loan for a house, they're going to check your income history. They're going to check your assets. They're going to check all these things. For a boat, they're just going to check your credit score. You can do $0 down financing. So I bought one boat with $0 down financing. And so $0 for one of them. One of them was $5,600, and the other one was about $10,000. And for those, I actually I borrowed against my stock portfolio. So really, and I didn't even have a big stock portfolio. That was, I guess, risky at the time. But so really $0 down for the boats, pretty much, and then had all that debt paid back probably 2 months, 3 months later. And then for the houses, each one I've been putting about every deal. So there's I've been putting about, let's say, probably on average 35,000 in, and I'm not buying an entire house. I'm buying a share of it, let's say a third of it. For instance, the one in Florida that you guys designed, that I put in a third of the capital. So each deal is different, but I've generally been putting about 35,000, and then it takes me several months to kind of make 35,000 more, and then I put it back in and just kind of rinse and repeat.
Right. Yeah, that's the name of the game. I know we go from cash poor to cash heavy.
Yeah, I kind of just stay at cash poor. But then again, you have, it says you have cash, but it's accounted for, yep. It's sitting there, but it's gone, it's all.
Yeah. You're just dying to put it on another property. That resonates.
Yeah, you already know where it's going next. You're just watching it build until you can put it there.
How little can I spend on my everyday life so I can put more towards houses?
Exactly. Rinse and repeat.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, well, so this next question kind of goes along with that last one. But I guess with your partners, when you guys are going into a house, how much do you expect to put into the house with down payment, furniture? You have two houses, and then you're doing two more right now, right?
So yeah, I guess I have. So each deal is different. Each deal is different. There's no, and I feel there's no exact way of doing it. Each type of not every house uses the same type of financing. And then in some deals, I've had a deal where I just manage it. I didn't have to put, I put in very little cash, but by, managing it, furnishing it, doing all the work, I've gotten additional equity. I've done a house where actually my friends who I invested. So I'll just give a story. Bought in May of 2021, bought a lake house with 6 friends, and kind of taught them how to do it, how to get it up and running, how to furnish it, all that. And then 2 of them have led a deal in Western NC where I've just invested. I put in 10%, $11,000, and they take they're in charge. So each deal is different. I would have to go one at a time to explain how we've done it. So there isn't a set way of doing it. I would say the model I definitely is having different portfolios in different places, and then as each one kind of cash flows, kind of just reinvesting. Florida, now that we know that model seems to be working for us, we're doubling down on it. And that's just a 3-person portfolio. So this house we're under contract for that we're supposed to close on Monday is a $575,000 house. It actually appraised at $605, so I'm really happy for that. A little bit of instant equity. And then it's 10% down, so we're going to do a second home loan. So that's, $57,000-$60,000 down, and then we'll probably need another 50 to fix it up, maybe 60. So that would make each of our investments, call it 35 to 40. That seems to be kind of the model I like doing the most.
So do you come up with your budget first, or do you find a deal first and be scrappy about coming up with whatever capital is needed?
Yeah, first, honestly, it's so hard to get things under contract right now that honestly, you don't, I feel like people tend to overthink everything, and we need to make sure that the numbers are perfect and we have our budget perfectly figured out at this point. I would say that, so the Florida house, this current one, literally I was on a call one day, and then the guys who I bought the first house with, just we're in a group chat and we're like, oh wow, the house is doing really well. Let's get another one. And I hadn't even looked at the messages, and then I read after my call, and they were like, we put in an offer. And I'm like, hold your horses, guys. What the heck? Don't you want to And for me, I pull the trigger quickly. I'm a trigger puller for sure. But I was like, guys, don't we want to deliberate this at all? Come on. And no, but they put in an offer, and then that first offer actually didn't work. It didn't get accepted. But by that point, I'd kind of warmed up to all right, we're gonna do this. So we actually ended up putting multiple offers in on multiple different houses. We got multiple houses under contract. I was actually in Las Vegas at my friend's bachelor party when we heard that these houses we'd got, because the thing is we didn't think we'd get one under contract, so we put offers on multiple because we didn't think we'd even get one under contract. Then we ended up getting multiple under contract. I flew to Florida straight from Las Vegas. One of the houses was 4 blocks away from a house we already have, but the other one was in a new area that I didn't really know much about. So I drove to that area. I literally walked around everywhere, probably every street within a 2-mile radius. I think I walked down. And I just some of it's running the numbers and some of it's just this is a winner. I could just tell. Right. We got 2 houses under contract. I went to one of them and I was like, loser. I was like, loser property. I went to the other one. I was like, winner.
This is it. And really, I feel like you're right. People do tend to overcomplicate it because it's at the end of the day, would you travel here? If the answer is no, then it's probably a loser property, right?
Yeah.
It's be more complicated.
Or it's just there's different considerations. I mean, we definitely, we plugged it into our model. We ran the numbers. We put in, the financing assumptions. We put in the furnishing assumptions. We put in all that. But really, honestly, from what I've seen, yes, you want the numbers to, everybody has their, most investors, in Airbnb who are pretty solid want 25% cash on cash return. And that's what I want too. But, you never know for sure. And really it takes the effort you put in to really drive the return. How much energy you put into creating an incredible experience is what a lot of the times produces that outcome. So yeah, it being a place I'm going to want to be, that I'm willing to spend 2 months and freaking be up till 4 or 5 a.m., doing whatever the hell is needed to do to turn it into a awesome vacation experience, I'm willing to do. And that is really a lot of times, with Airbnbs, you don't just, again, I run the numbers. I'm all about, running the numbers. That's honestly, that might be my niche is running the numbers. I'm all about that, but ultimately it comes down to the days of buying a turnkey Airbnb and it just, you get there and it's already furnished and everything's incredible and that having incredible returns, that's over. We got one property that way, and the one in October of 2020, and that time I didn't even know I was going to go full on Airbnb, and that's why I was like, oh, this is a turnkey property. At that time I was still thinking I'm going to move back to New York. My New York life is going to continue. But oh wow, this is a turnkey property. Okay, that's easy. I don't have to do any work. But now it's to great draw. Now that it's my career, each one needs incredible returns, which requires putting in the work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's something that people don't think about enough is it just makes so much more sense and you get so much more equity and there's so much more benefit if you're just willing to coordinate turning a okay property into an amazing property that provides an amazing experience. If you're willing to put in that work or believe in that work and join a team who is willing to put in that kind of work, then yeah, you're going to see those great returns. But absolutely, the days are coming to a close where people are just throwing random furniture into a random home and then hoping that they're going to turn a profit.
Yeah, yields are shrinking down the line. It's properties are getting more expensive, so in order for them to reach return metrics, you have to be a value add investor essentially.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, next question is, what's been your biggest challenge in real estate investing so far?
Uh, I mean, I would say again that this is like my unique situation, but I mean, I think just to like compare and contrast, like the thing that is cool about Airbnb, I would say, for most people, what probably like most people like about it is that one or two properties can like quote unquote set you financially free, which is true. I mean, there's two properties in our portfolio that I don't own 100% of them. I own 20% of one, 33% of another. That if I were to own 100% of both of those properties, I probably like the annual cash flow from both of them would, be between 200 and a quarter million.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, like I've had to do a lot of properties, to build a business. I've had to do a ton, and like more properties, more problems. That's just the thing. You do two, like you do three houses, even four houses. It can be pretty easy. Like once you get it set up and get get it up and running, and have a good cleaning and handyman crew, automate the messages. It can be pretty easy, but that's not the route I've taken. It's a lot of properties, a lot of problems. I manage properties for clients, so I don't just have guests. I have homeowners, which is a different relationship, and that requires its own set of principles and its own procedures. And I've got two boat businesses, which again that's a totally unique thing. So I'd say my challenge, or what's is just I do a lot of stuff, and stuff comes up.
This isn't a question on our list, but I'm curious, do you ever see yourself at some point kind of narrowing your scope of what's required for your attention on a day-to-day basis and letting all of it go and just pooling all of your money into, say, two or three properties that are going to bring you in just as much as it would when you're kind of spread thin over several different properties down the road?
Yeah, and that's definitely something. I mean, I like to stay busy, and that's just like if I don't have anything to do, like I kind of go crazy. But granted, I don't like looking at my to-do list right now either because it's obscenely long, and
Right.
I have to prioritize. What am I going to do? What am I going to push to next week? Um, but I definitely would like to have the option. Like I would like to have the fallback, knowing like what, I could get rid of everything, and the fact that I own this one house means I can like if I wanted to, I could retire. Like
Right.
and that's like something you realize like wow, like this one house I could cash flow this one house where the mortgage payment is $2,500 a month could we're pulling in $13,000 a month. Like there's $9,000 in the middle there that's cash flow. Like do I spend $9,000 a month? No, I don't spend $9,000 a month. Like I could literally be straight chilling. So I would like to have that in the bag. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
I would not. I mean, if I was that way, I don't think I'd be where I am.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Cool. All right.
So obviously COVID played like a big factor in your Airbnb journey, but has there been any other pivotal moments in your journey that like changed your strategy in real estate?
I mean, the thing was like, I mean, yeah, and I think I've seen y'all, but like, yeah, when I was a kid, I played like Sims. Like I liked the idea of like making and designing houses. So I don't know if it was just like a realization that I enjoyed. I enjoy seeing a house, like kind of getting an idea of the floor plan and figuring out how to like turn it into a really cool experience. I guess having a realization that I enjoy doing that was pretty pivotal. COVID was just kind of like a realization that, yeah, boat rentals, rural vacation properties, could make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I guess, yeah, realizing both of those things. A, you can make money doing it. B, like I like doing it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And see, you're good at it, so.
We'll see. I
So
hope.
that also helps.
So far, you've been pretty successful.
Right. I missed this question up here, but I want to go back and ask it. Across the board, I mean, you've obviously got a wide range of investments, and you've gotten to taste a lot within, the Airbnb industry and with boat rentals. Um, from like least profitable to most profitable, what's kind of your range in cash flow a month, and what's making the most money, what's making the least amount of money?
So I mean, the considerations here is like there's some properties where I manage, so I get just regardless of like the cash flow or the profitability, I get my management fee, you know. And there's properties that I don't own anything in where I get my management fee. So I wouldn't even necessarily know how those properties, you know, are cash. Like I don't know the mortgage for those. It's not my, you know, that's not under my like you know responsibility. There's certain properties where I led the deal. Uh, I'm sorry if there's background noise, but there's property where I led the deal, and you know, I'm a you know owner in the property, and I'm the manager, so I get money from my like owner payout, and you know from managing it as well. Uh, so I guess my point is here is like, do you want to know which like the property itself, like what's the most profitable, or like what's most profitable for me?
Property itself. I think that that's probably more relevant to other people.
Yeah, sure. So I think, I mean, our, again, and this is kind of like, I talk about this sometimes on social media, but every property that I've kind of dealt with, like I've never bought a $1.4 million home. Like I've
Right.
never had the means of doing that. Even like, you know, if I pool capital with people and, you know, we buy a $1.5 million home, even with a 10% down payment plus, you know, the furnishing, that's going to be $250,000. If I'm investing my 35K out of a $250,000 pie, that's what, like 11% of the property? Like that's,
Yeah.
yeah. So what I've kind of been sticking with is like $400,000 home to like $600,000 home. So every property we've actually done has been that I've like invested in and kind of know the loan numbers and kind of have the full scope of profitability has been between 400,000 and 600,000. So we have one property that's pulling in about 140 grand of revenue that's had a full year of revenue. The one the y'all designed, we haven't had a full year, so I don't know what that's looking like. But I'm based off, you know, we have July fully booked out already. We have, you know, August, a lot of it's booked out, and June. Like, you know, we have a pretty good idea that I think we know what the full year will look like, and it should average about 13K a month, which would be about $150,000 in revenue, which would put it as our highest performing property. And that's actually with also 1 week minimum stays. We're not even doing like 2-3 night minimum stays. We're doing 1 week or six.
Oh, that's ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that being said, we have there's 3 properties that are like 130 to 150. There's one, the turnkey one we bought for 450. That one's pulling in like 80, 85 or something. And again, that the point is there is it was a turnkey property. You're not gonna, you know, it's not gonna make as much as the ones like the one we just bought for 429K. I think that one has potential to do really well. I'm not even gonna give a number, but like we're going in on it. So once it's done, I'd hope people would want to stay there.
All right. Does your budget for paying attention to the inside or the experience of the property go up the further you get into this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely am more confident. Like you go into a space and you're like, oh, this is what we can do to it, you know, versus at the beginning, you know, the first one, you know, not the first in October, the October 2021, where I was like, oh, this is turnkey. Like, don't have to do anything. Like that was like my consideration then. Now I go into a space and I'm like, what can we turn this into? Like, oh wow, we could frame this. Like this is an unfinished basement. We could frame this in a week, and which we did. We just got someone to frame it in a week and then put in floors. Oh, we could move this fan here. You know, oh, we could bump out this wall and extend this bathroom. You know, like you need experience, kind of like physically working on these properties to be able to see what potential they have and get more confidence of like, I know how to communicate with contractors. I know how to get this done.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know that it's going to increase your ROI, right? I feel like, especially with us and dealing with brand new investors all the time, who are coming to us to help design, they're so terrified that spending money on creating a quality experience for guests isn't going to have an ROI attached to it. And a lot of times we'll see people who are seeing, the design of the inside or spending extra money on amenities isn't worth it. They're just like, oh, we're being emotional about it. We don't need to add that. It's just a business. Let's do the bare minimum. And I'm like, no, like if you will go through the process and you will turn this into an experience and you'll put the guest's experience first as your top priority, there will be a much larger return on investment on the back end.
Exactly, which I think is a cool, like in what line of business, I mean, obviously, yeah, you have a product that, your customer likes more, you're going to do better, but it's literally like, how do we make sure people have an awesome time here? Like that's our job, is like, they're going to come here and this is going to be like the most memorable time of their year. Like, how do we ensure that? Which is kind of a cool, thing to have in the back burner.
Yeah, it's fun. It makes what you're doing fun. Like, I can't imagine getting into real estate investing and having the most profitable thing that you can do be like a fix and flip, right? And all of a sudden you really are like limited to what you can do in the house. You're like, okay, we can only partially renovate the kitchen and we can only partially renovate the bathroom, but we don't want to do more than that because there's not going to be an ROI attached to it. In comparison to Airbnb and loving interior design and getting to just go ham on it and be like, yes, we're going to turn this into some extravagant experience, and that's going to increase our profitability on the back end. Like, we just feel super lucky to like exist in a time where this is an option as a career.
Yeah, and definitely, I mean, for the projects we are doing at this point, I mean, the things we do are increasing not even just for the Airbnb potential of the property, but are really increasing the value of the property. Yet we have not done a refinance yet. We could have. I mean, we definitely could refi if we wanted to. We just haven't. But that consideration is something that I personally look at. Like for this mountain house, Smoky Mountains Mountain House, I was looking at it as a home. Like I understand the concept of home flipping and how those like numbers work out. So I knew, I'm like, if we, there's 700 unfinished square footage in the basement. If we finish it, we're thus increasing the value of the property, potentially, 140,000 potentially. I mean, obviously, you only realize that when you sell it, or you can pull out cash when you refi. But it's like putting money into the property to turn it into a nicer property is like increasing the value of the asset. So it's about the Airbnb cash flow, but it's also about making the asset as lucrative or as valuable as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And on Airbnb specifically, obviously, like as more people get into it, if I'm on Airbnb looking to book a place and there's two places, they both have 5-star reviews, but one review says it was just functional and another review talks about all the crazy things that was in it to make it even better, I'm booking that place over the place that was just functional.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anytime. So, and as more people get into it, that'll be more important. Being functional will only get you so far.
Yeah,
I agree.
Absolutely. Cool. Is it my question or your question?
I think it's mine. I think you asked one of
mine. My bad.
I'll just ask one of yours. Here. Okay, so when you've been talking to other people that are in the space, what's the most valuable piece of advice you've received from someone regarding investing?
So I talked to this guy. I don't want to butcher his name. I actually will butcher his name. I actually don't know his real name. I just know his Instagram, TikTok name. Yeah, I don't. Hamaza? Hamzaza? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Well, he does the model of essentially you like arbitrage where you do 7 units like at a time in a building. So you call them and you say, I want to fill all your vacancies at the same, like I want to fill all of them at the same time. And through that, it's incredibly scalable. You get one building to let you do 7. You get the next building to let you do 9. And that's the only thing he does. And he's just like, look, like I've seen your stuff, like I like get it, like great, but like he's like, this is what I'm doing, and I'm scaling this, I'm growing this, I'm doing it this way. And he's like, to me, I just think you just have to be laser focused on one thing, on growing that thing. And okay, I'm not gonna say I've acted on that advice, but I've definitely kind of agreed because I'm looking at myself and I'm like, damn, like I'm doing, like I'm just doing a lot of different stuff, and I mean I'm growing it. Like don't get me wrong, and like the money's coming in, but it's just definitely easiest to figure out one thing that you're going to do. I mean, I'd say co-hosting is a great way to like get into investing, or if you want to have like a co-host business, but it's, doing everything. Don't essentially recommend not doing what I do. Don't do glamping and arbitrage and investing and co-hosting and boat rentals. Not that boat rentals are Airbnb. Don't be me. Maybe pick two of them.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said about narrowing your focus and getting really, really exceptional at one thing. When Emily and I first started designing in DFW, we were working for people who were following that exact model, right? They were just, repeat clients for arbitrage opportunities specifically in DFW was our bread and butter because we could design just as fast as they were scooping up several properties at a time, and they would just get groups of people together who all would essentially fund one of the 7 properties. And so you'd have one person go in and negotiate for 7, 15, 25 people, and everyone would fund one property. And yeah, you can scale that very quickly.
Exactly. Which I mean, if I would have gone back 2 years and like would said, Jeremy, you're going to do an Airbnb business, which again I didn't know I was going to do that. And I would say I am ambitious. Like I want to grow as big of businesses as possible. Yeah, that's probably the way to do it. It definitely is the most scalable way of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what, do you watch Sean at all on Sean
Yeah, that's
Rad?
yep.
And that's kind of his thing is he's like, when people ask him why he does arbitrage versus ownership, he's like, I want to make millions fast. It is a much faster way to go about it. I don't know if it's as sustainable long term, but it is much speedier if you're looking to scale quickly.
Yeah, and I would say, I do like the vacation houses in a bunch of different places. Like it's cool to be like, oh, I'm staying at one of my mountain houses this week, and like, oh, I'm staying at like one of my Florida, like that's cool too. I would say like, or not even saying that, like I like staying at them. So that might be a consideration. But if you're just trying to grow quickly, and which honestly, like you're gonna say, Jeremy, what type of business do you want to have? I would say the biggest and fastest growing one I could possibly have, and that would be the way to do it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's a good way to proceed. I agree. You can definitely do it faster than purchasing properties, especially in today's market. All right. Well, last question here before we start wrapping up is what is your least favorite part about the STR industry as a whole?
I don't know if honestly my least favorite part of business in general is bookkeeping. I don't know if that's especially when you have like all these different owners and different things, and we have partnership tax forms, and we have I have monthly payouts that I have to figure out what the exact amount I got to pay out everybody. Yeah, I don't know if that's just business. I don't know if that's an STR specific thing or just, again, more businesses, more money, more problems.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I guess we can't really compare it to any other business, but one, if I didn't have Emily, the back end of our business would be a cluster.
Yeah, shitty guests. I don't like shitty guests. We get shitty guests all the time. And definitely, I am like their personal concierge to happiness, so, some guests require more attention and, more hand holding than other guests. And that's part of it. It's what I signed up for. But would I say, yeah, I love getting calls at like 4 a.m. sometimes. Because this switch here doesn't work,
Yeah.
I'm not.
14 seconds, I'm gonna leave a bad review.
Well, yeah, exactly. Or like people who do leave, I get pissed when, I mean, I would say I think I have a pretty impressive, impressive ratio of 5-star reviews. We have had, some properties we, go 2 years without a single 4-star review. We only have 5 stars, and then one day I get a 2-star review, and I'm just like, and that really hurts. That negatively impacts your business. And then the reason they give for it is, I mean, really, it's just, I'll be honest, like, someone comes in from San Francisco and to rural North Carolina, and it's not what they expect, and I'm like, and they give you a bad review, and I'm like, I mean, come on, what do you, where do you think you're going?
Yeah, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that resonates. That's honestly a big reason why I hired a property management company, because I was too emotionally invested in people who weren't elated to be staying at my properties. I'm like, I can't handle the 2 a.m. phone calls anymore.
I love it. Most people are extremely grateful, and I would say for boats even more so than like houses. People are like grateful. They're like, they're like, I mean, there's just not a lot of options out there for getting out on the water, and especially, right now and during COVID, like some people who are just cooped up, they just needed something like that, and that, and people like are incredibly thankful. So it's nice. It is, on the, most of the time it's on that end of people are extremely thankful for you opening up your houses to them. But then, yeah, there's the people who think like you're just, like you work for them,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. That is all the questions that we have for today. Before we kind of wrap up here, why don't you plug everyone, all of our listeners, in with where to find you and how to contact you after this?
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Jeremy Werden, and that is my social handle on Instagram, TikTok, I guess Twitter. Don't look at my Twitter. It's kind of just like I think of it as like a parody account of myself, but whatever.
Find you on Twitter immediately.
Oh, for sure.
But I mean, Instagram, you can send DMs. I try to respond. I will say sometimes when certain videos on TikTok do better than others, it kind of becomes a full-time job just to respond to those messages, but I really do try. So yeah, Instagram, TikTok, follow me on TikTok. I try to provide some helpful information there.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. For our listeners, you can follow us on @CarwellDesign, literally everywhere.
On everything else. We'll also link Jeremy's in the description as well, so it'll be easy for you guys to find him. Also, if you want to go to our link tree and send in your Airbnb horror stories, we love reading them. We want to tell people about them and hopefully come up with some solutions to your horror stories.
Shed some light on the chaos behind being an Airbnb host.
Yes.
Well, thank you again, Jeremy, so much for coming on the show. We'll be looking forward to working with you in the future.
Likewise. Awesome, guys. Well, appreciate y'all having me, and look forward to the future with y'all as well.
Beautiful.
All right. Next time.
See y'all later.
All right. Bye, guys.